Exploring ethanol, a biofuel project. We'll be going over what is bioethanol, the production behind it, development, some of the impacts, public efforts, and my own analysis, recommendation, and a plan of action. So what is bioethanol? Bioethanol is a biofuel substitute for petrol that is produced from sugar fermentation. Used mainly throughout Brazil, US, and Europe, its history is long and extensive, with the first use being in 1826 by a group of American engineers. The primary use of bioethanol is motor power. It is typically mixed with diesel or gasoline in order to reduce CO2 emissions, and some cars can run off it entirely. Production of ethanol is a three-step process starting with preparation, where sugar crops contain sucrose, which can ferment easier, while grains have starch that must be broken down into sugars first. Once prepared, fermentation can take place with yeast by converting sugars to ethanol and carbon dioxide. This is done by alcohol fermentation, where glucose is broken down through glycolysis, which forms pyruvate, then forms acetaldehyde, which is reduced to form NAD plus and ethanol. Then it goes through the distillation process, which evaporates the ethanol, where it's collected and turned into a high concentration ethanol solution. Development status of bioethanol. First generation bioethanol is in wide use, with 58.162 billion liters being produced between Brazil and the US annually. Second generation uses non-consumable crops such as agricultural waste, but is in its early stages due to inefficiencies. Third and fourth generation bioethanol uses algae in order to create ethanol, but these are in developmental research stages. The environmental impact. Bioethanol has a substantially lower carbon footprint because it's cleaner and has fewer particulates. Biofuels do emit carbon dioxide, but this is often dismissed because the plants grown to create the biofuel recapture the carbon. Bioethanol production is criticized because plants grown for production can take up space, fertilizer, and resources that can be used for consumable crops. This is why second, third, and fourth generation bioethanol is becoming popular. Bioethanol is biodegradable, which allows it to be exported and imported easier. Economic impact. The ethanol production industry resulted in $54.2 billion of the U.S. GDP. Over 72,000 jobs in the U.S. are directly involved in the production of ethanol, and 322,000 jobs are support the production of ethanol. Public efforts to spread awareness and promote the use of bioethanol. Majority of the incentives to produce bioethanol are federally funded. The USDA Biomass Crop Assistance Program provides assistance to individuals that are involved in the production of bioethanol, and the USDA gives grants and loans to promote the creation of commercial-scale factories that aid in production of ethanol under the Biorefinery Assistance Program. For second generation and beyond, the Advanced Research Project Agency provides research to promote domestic production and development in technologies. Nonprofit organizations like the EFI advocate for the use of biofuels by educating people on the effects of fossil fuels and how biofuels can serve as an alternative. My own analysis, recommendation, and plan of action for bioethanol. Analysis pros. It is a global effort to combat climate change, so bioethanol is a step in the right direction. Its cleaner qualities make it enticing and a good alternative. Research being done for future iterations makes it more feasible and economical. However, cons include taking up land for edible crops and producing carbon dioxide. Other renewable resources take up less space and have no carbon emissions altogether. My recommendation is that I believe it would be more wise to use funding for other options such as nuclear, solar, and wind because they take up less space, produce no carbon, and generate more electricity altogether. Also, further advancements in EV production and the use of combustible engines is becoming less popular. This reduces the main reason behind ethanol production altogether. A plan of action if funding were not an obstacle is I believe most of it should go towards ethanol research towards the second generation. The production of ethanol from waste is a strong way to recycle. I believe bioethanol can be used as an intermediary in the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, especially in older vehicles. These are some of the citations from the resources I used. I appreciate you listening to the presentation.